All right. Hello and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. It is Saturday, April 27th of 2024 at about 6:30 p.m. after a very long day 3. The 2024 NFL draft is finally in the books, and we saw the Houston Texans pick 6 players today. So we'll talk about them as much as we can. The later round draft picks, not as much to go off of. And honestly, not as many expectations attached to them. We hope they all end up being Tom Brady. Congratulations to all of them for actually getting drafted. But first move that they made today was trading up in the 4th round with the Philadelphia Eagles, moving up 4 picks, trading a 5th rounder next year to do a swap with Philly. Cade Stover, tight end, Ohio State, the 23rd pick of the 4th round. The picks after that, Jamal Hill, a safety turned linebacker out of Oregon in the 6th round. Jawhar Jordan at the back of the 6th round, a running back out of Louisville. And then 3 picks in the 7th round, Edge Solomon Byrd from USC, defensive tackle Marcus Harris from Auburn, and guard/tackle LaDarius Henderson from Michigan. Couple of comments to open things up. Solid draft. I'm thinking B. Jacob Byers. Harris is definitely a steal. People had him in the 5th, but he went to us in the 7th. Yeah, we'll talk about him a little bit later, especially at a position, I think, of need for the Houston Texans in this draft to get a defensive tackle that, per Lance Zierlein's write-up, has been compared to Timmy Jernigan. Nice. Again, he's a 7th round pick. Are you expecting him to live up to that draft comparison? Probably not, but yeah, not bad, especially considering you could use all the help you can get at defensive tackle. To DeRino's comment on YouTube to open this up. I hate draft grades. 1, because it's impossible to know until we actually see these guys on the field. It really is. And 2, I find it very interesting. Over the next couple of days, you're going to see a lot of different websites and NFL draft experts grade drafts. And they have much more of a clue than me, so I'm not going to hate on them completely. All I'm saying is that they're very generous for the most part with the grading. There will be 1 or 2 teams that get an F, but for the most part, everyone gets a B or above. Just take my word for it. Read all of the write-ups that you see to grade drafts. I don't know if it's because all of a sudden we look at B's the same way that we used to look at C's. I don't know if teachers are grading a little bit easier these days, but I think we've got a generous curve. If you're going to grade, actually go out there and let's make the people earn it. If you're going to put in the effort to putting together a report card of some sort, I don't know, maybe, just a thought, they should really have to blow your socks off to get an A or even a B. Like a C was satisfactory. D's get degrees, but you're not thrilled about it. And an F is a failure, but you almost never see in these little reports that they do after the draft. You'll never see D's or F's unless like there's one team. I bet the Falcons get it because of the Michael Penix thing. But for the most part, everybody else, like you might see a couple of C pluses, but everyone's going to get a B. It's fucking participation trophy culture, I tell you. I hate it. MAB Squad 1914 says, I agree. I hate draft grades as well. Ayers says, I still can't believe people wanted us to waste draft picks on wide receivers, especially guys on a certain radio station that just wants a wide receiver because they went to UT. I don't know who that person is, who you're referring to, but I am with you there. I honestly felt like they had enough at wide receiver before they traded for Stephon Diggs. I understand the idea of having wide receivers for after Stephon Diggs or after Nico Collins, seeing as both of their contracts expire after this season is done. I do think there's still time for Nico Collins to get an extension before the season begins. But I feel like they're fine, you know? Like, you still have Robert Woods on the team. As far as number 5 wide receivers go, that's pretty good. John Mechie, we'll see if he ever amounts to what people thought he could be before he had cancer and torn ACL. Xavier Hutchinson is still on the roster. Steven Sims had a punt return touchdown. He's got to work on, catching speed sweeps and stuff. But yeah, I'm with you there. So there you go, guys. What's up, John Ryan? Okay, let's talk about the first pick. This is the pick that everyone's going to be excited about, and rightfully so. Because 1, it's a 4th-round pick. 2, the guy played at Ohio State. 3, he caught passes from C.J. Stroud for at least one season in 2022. And I guess he did technically catch 7 passes in 2021. I'm assuming most of those came from C.J. Stroud, but I'm not 100% sure. Cade Stover is a guy with a really, really interesting backstory. So everyone who plays high school football that is a 4 or a 5-star prospect, you're going to hear things about how good they were in high school that surprise you. But remember that high school football players generally were more than just a guy who stuck on one side of the football. And Cade Stover was Mr. Ohio. He ran for nearly 1,500 yards and 17 touchdowns on offense and had 163 tackles and 4 interceptions on defense. And he also, this is how good of an athlete he was. And again, he's an NFL player. You expect this. He set the all-time scoring record at his high school in basketball. He got recruited to Ohio State to play linebacker. He moved to defensive end before his freshman year. Then he moved to tight end in 2020. Then he moved to linebacker during the season. Then back to tight end for 2021, where he caught 5 passes for 76 yards with Stroud. The next year, 36 catches for 406 yards and 5 touchdowns. I guess he played linebacker in the Rose Bowl due to a shortage of players. And then last year, where I believe he was a captain for Ohio State, he had himself a very productive year as a tight end and was in the top 3 for the Mackey Award, which is the award that's given out to the best tight end in college football over the course of the year. He has supposedly kept in touch with C.J. Stroud, so you got a little bit of familiarity with him. Is he going to get more reps than Dalton Schultz? I don't know. From the scouting reports that I'm reading about him, seems like he is more of a receiver than a blocker. It's not to say that he can't ever block. This is a guy that has played all sorts of positions. I feel like he is definitely someone who can figure it out eventually. But I'm just going to read Lance Zierlein's draft profile, and then we'll talk about him a little bit more. This is what Lance Zierlein wrote. He knows way more about these prospects than I do. I'm really just going off of what he says and trying to make snappy judgments with wit on the fly. Okay. A catch first, block second tight end, whose jump in play as a receiving threat is going to be hard to ignore. Stover is a tight end conversion from the defensive side of the ball. He's a little clunky getting off the line, but really picks up the pace as the route unfolds. Interesting. So maybe this is a guy that C.J. Stroud can throw passes to down the seam, and maybe someone who can even stretch the field a little bit as a tight end. He started as a high school hooper, and that same athleticism can be found in his route running, high point timing, and run after the catch. Stover possesses the tools to move in a positive direction as a run blocker, but needs to upgrade his grit at the point of attack and effort as a move blocker. He's an upside prospect with the potential to play in line or flexed out and should become a productive starter within a couple of years. I love a lot of what I just read right there. Some more positives, some more strengths. Elude and bludgeon are on the menu as a runner after the catch. Really, it's hard to hate on anything about this, and I think that the Texans needed a tight end. They have Brevin Jordan, they have Tegan Quitoriano, and we've seen both of those guys contribute at times, but I feel like you needed another receiving weapon. That's nothing against Brevin Jordan, who of course had the big catch and run touchdown against the Cleveland Browns, but say Dalton Schultz gets hurt, you want to have somebody who has that kind of potential that we just listed. Again, he's a 4th-round pick, so is he going to actually realize this? I don't know. A lot of other teams clearly didn't seem to think so. That's why he fell as far as he did. The Houston Texans must have liked him because they decided to trade up 4 picks in the 4th round to go and get him. They were probably under the impression that somebody was going to sneak in front of them, like it seemed like it happened a lot on Thursday, and perhaps on Friday with all the teams that were making trades to get cornerbacks right before the Houston Texans picked. So today they said, nah, we ain't going to wait. Gave up a 5th-round pick to do it. So I like this pick. But again, it's entirely based off of reading a draft profile. I did not watch nearly enough Ohio State football to know just how good this guy is. But I am assuming that somebody who was recruited to Ohio State as a linebacker that also played defensive end, then got moved to tight end, and has been an incredible basketball player in the past, is a beast of an athlete. So I think he can get better. We shall see. But this is the pick that everyone's going to be talking about from day 3 of the draft for the Houston Texans. Some more comments. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant, Twitch.tv/Gallant says, Master Race 400, Jesus, what a name, says, I got the draft as a B-. Solid, not amazing, but solid. Well, if you're going to say solid, say C. Say C. B- is better than solid. B- is like, it was pretty good. Or good. I guess B would be good. B- would be, I liked it. John Ryan comments, sorry for being on so late. Oh, we just started. I was taking a Belichick and had to wipe my Brady. Hey, what the fuck? What the fuck? That's not cool. Belichick is a shit. Brady's your asshole. That's not cool, man. That's my Lord and Savior, Tom Brady. Watch your mouth. Bill Belichick, greatest coach of all time. Falcons going to find that out the hard way this year. More comments. Austin Savage says, can't wait for the rekindling of the Stover and Stroud connection. Man, Stroud had a lot of awesome weapons to throw to at Ohio State, didn't he? Or this guy's like a 4th-round pick. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously. Garrett Wilson. Oof. Anyway, more comments. Jacob Ayers. It's obvious Nick and D'Amico didn't see this draft as valuable as some others, because if they wanted a guy, they would have traded up to get them, in my opinion. Well, it sounds like they were trying to trade up. I just don't think Nick Caserio is a very aggressive trader. He's not like what you see with the Rams. You know, the Rams always say, fuck them picks. We'll just trade up and get the guys that we like. And all right, it's worked when they've traded for veteran players. But, I mean, they were trolling people before the draft this year, talking about how, like, we actually have a 1st-round pick for the first time since Jared Goff. CS292 says they get an A because they're going to kick everyone's ass. Okay, we'll see. John Ryan is saying I look like a sexy beast with that Texans gear on. I think this is like the JJ Watt special. Like it's like a hoodie tank top. Chef comments, I love how my Bears were the only team to draft a punter. Thoughts and prayers, sir. That sucks. I hate it when that happens. H-Town Wheelhouse, Paulie G, you're the man. You're the man, H-Town Wheelhouse. What's up, dog? I do not stand on business. I'm not going to say stand on business. I'm not. I hate that everyone's saying stand on business now. It was cool when CJ Stroud said it when I asked him that at the Broncos post-game show press conference. The Broncos post-game press conference, I asked him about that guy that got in his face. I was like, yo, what happened there? I think I asked him more professionally than that. Yo, dog, what happened there, yo? Did that man make you stand on business? And then CJ Stroud said an answer that involved saying stand on business. He was very serious when he answered that. But yeah, I don't really know what that means, stands on business. Is it because I'm white? Perhaps. Betrayal Stories. What an interesting name for your YouTube channel, sir. Or ma'am, or whatever you are. This draft was about depth. We needed it badly. Yeah, they needed some depth. I mean, if you take a look at what this roster was going into last year, I mean, I think we all looked at it and said, yeah, there's some talent. Whatever Stroud ends up being, whatever Will Anderson ends up being, Derek Stingley's on the roster, Kenyon Green's supposed to be. You have some other guys that you were looking at saying, well, Nico Collins is a huge mother lover, and you hope that can actually be realized as a good wide receiver. And guess what? You actually saw that. But going into last year, I think we looked at the Texans roster and thought to ourselves, this isn't a great roster. And that's what makes it really funny that everyone did this 180 about how Carolina was a horrible situation for Bryce Young, but the Texans were such a great situation for CJ Stroud. A lot of people thought that the Texans situation sucked. They thought they had the worst wide receivers in the league going into this year. Collins shocks everybody. Tank Dell, steal in the third round. Let's read some more comments. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Rick Haywood says, I actually think we had a decent draft. Got a good group of backups and maybe one or two rotational guys. But what would you grade it? I'm just kidding. Don't grade it. Don't do the grading things. Don't do the grading things. All of a sudden, there's Let's Go Brandon comments coming up. Jesus, guys, settle down. Settle down. I have not even had my first drink of the day yet, okay? Waiting a little bit for that. Because I'm a busy bee, and I watched the draft very attentively today. Common Sense 200 comments. Remember when J.J. Watt played tight end? I could imagine Fisher being converted to tight end for a scrimmage block for Mixon. You're talking about Blake Fisher? I think you're overthinking it, bub. I think you're overthinking it a little bit. CS292, is standing on business means stand on a step stool? That's fun. DeRhino, Paul, are those guns registered, buddy? These are not guns. These are like runner arms. I remember one time someone I was dating, like I work out. I'm a little bit psychotic about my bod. I feel like I look pretty good with a shirt off. But I know that I don't have like massive arms or anything like that. I'm pretty skinny arms-wise. Got skinny calves, skinny forearms. And I remember I was dating somebody and she was trying to compliment the shape I was in. And she said, like, you have a runner's body. And I don't know why, but I took it as an insult. I look like somebody who runs marathons. Oh, I don't look like a football player. And I don't look like a football player. I'm a high school football player that played at the lowest level of high school football in Florida. In denial. John Ryan says it was a great draft for Houston. Well, that means like an A-, huh? Anyway, Halam says Fisher was the top tackle picked outside the first with a lot of upside. Yeah, we talked about him last night, where apparently he's more naturally talented than Joe Alt. He's just less consistent. All right, we only talked about one pick thus far, Cade Stover from Ohio State. The next pick, an interesting one, Jamal Hill, a linebacker who used to be a safety from Oregon. Very raw player, based off of the Lance Zierlein write-up, but he ran a 4.41 40 at one point. At the very least, you look at this guy and you're like, okay, great special teamer. And you also look at the lack of depth that the Texans have at linebacker, which we mentioned towards the end of last night's show, and you think, okay, this is the same kind of build as a Henry To'oTo'o, another fast linebacker. Hill obviously played safety before. I'm looking at him as a guy that they're looking to fit in somewhere on special teams and that they hope as a project can turn into maybe a, occasional substitution at linebacker. He's going to have to bulk up on that front. He is 6 feet tall, 226 pounds, which is not to say he's tiny, but reading this report right here from Lance Zierlein, undersized. Very fast, very explosive, outstanding range, capable of soft dropping and spying on mobile quarterbacks. That would help for Lamar Jackson. Rarely allows opponents to break free from his tackles. That sounds good. Has the talent to handle man coverage duties. Jeez, his strengths are something else. Yeah. Gotta say, read that draft report by Lance Zierlein at NFL.com. Sounds like a pretty good pick in the 6th round, mainly because of the versatility. And I think that is the real story of today, versatility. You got it with Cade Stover, a guy who's done literally everything at the collegiate level. And Jamal Hill is a safety turned linebacker who's fast as hell. The next pick, Jawhar Jordan. Everyone wanted the Texans to get a running back. They get him in the 6th round. He's small, so I don't really see him as a special teams guy. 5'9", 193, especially with the way that the kickoff's been changed. Lance's report says he's a little bit smaller in the lower half, but he's tougher than his size would indicate. So that's nice, but not sudden or explosive, has good vision. Good vision? That sounds good for a Bobby Slowick offense. I think some would argue that Dameon Pierce did not have good vision. I still think there's a place for Dameon Pierce on this roster. I think a lot of you guys have written off Dameon Pierce far too early. I think Dameon Pierce has a lot of talent. I really do. Part of that is, yeah, sure, a little bit of bias because he played for the Florida Gators, and I felt like he was underutilized and poorly used by the Gators. But this guy is somebody that I think still has a chance to be good. We saw him in 2022 on that team with Davis Mills as quarterback. Did he not look really good? I mean, he had a kick return touchdown as well this past year. He has talent. He is really good at breaking through tackles. He's just got to figure out the vision. And you know what? That is a hard thing to learn, vision. And does him becoming more patient take away from his aggressiveness and his ability to drive through people? I don't know, but this Jawhar Jordan guy does not strike me as somebody who is going to keep Dameon Pierce off the field. I think the real question is, how many downs is Joe Mixon going to play? Of course, the Texans traded for this offseason. Let's read some more comments. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. John Ryan is giving it an A. Rick Hagwood, you and Casario could trade heads. What does that mean? Do we look similar? Do I have alarmingly open eyes? Do I look robotic at all? I don't think so. I want to talk to Casario though. I have an NFL program from going to a Patriots game. I want to say when I was in 8th grade, and Nick Casario looks exactly the fucking same as he did in that program. I forget what Patriots game it was. 2002 was the first year that me and my dad had season tickets to go watch the Patriots. It was right after they'd won the Super Bowl. We'd been on the waiting list from 1996 on when they first made the Super Bowl when I was alive. They lost to the Packers in Super Bowl 31. And I have some of the NFL programs that were at the stadium there. And yeah, Nick Casario was on staff there. It's weird. Because I remember he always jumped out. I think it was because, I don't know why he jumped out. Did Paul have the sight? I don't know. Perhaps. Brandon Halam is saying the Eagles were squeezing a lot of picks out of people today. They seem to do it every year. Yeah, Howie Roseman has been around for a very long time. I want to look that up off the top of my head because it is pretty surprising that he is still in charge with the Eagles. Yeah, he has been in that role for, 2010 to 2014. He was the general manager. Then he got moved to executive vice president of football operations. He's the executive vice president and general manager from 2019 on. Wow. So he's been there, I'm going to guess, in that role longer than anyone in the NFL. I think the only person that could be on the same level is maybe Seahawks general manager John Schneider, but I think he came in the same year as Pete Carroll, which was 2011. When you've been around that long, you know who to call, you know how to sell. Experience does do wonders. So I'm assuming that's why he's so good with all the trades. Brandon Hallam says they need to get hit with Barkley tampering by next year. Maybe, maybe not. The tampering thing's dumb. Everyone talks to each other, There's no way to cut off communication between two parties, especially if one of those parties maybe wants to go there to spite the New York Giants. Obviously, Barkley supposedly wanted to go to the Houston Texans first, in case you hadn't heard that news before. But the Texans drew a line in the sand at a certain salary, and the Eagles were willing to go over it. Brandon Hallam says, I still think Azeez Al-Shaair is an improvement over Blake Cashman. Probably. I would agree there. I think that you got the absolute most you possibly could with Blake Cashman. And I'm happy for Blake Cashman. That was an awesome year, and a guy like that deserves to get paid. When you play that well for a season in the NFL, even if it's not something that lasts, go and get your money. Sometimes it doesn't work out in the next stop, and maybe Cashman, among other Houston Texans who have left, are some of the same guys that years from now, with the Texans maybe, doing some winning, come back to the Texans on a discount or something like that. It's one of the fun parts about being a Patriots fan growing up is that I always would see players leave the Patriots for better contracts because the Patriots always were cheap. They lowballed people. But if it didn't work out there, they'd come back to the Patriots, and then they would generally play pretty well in their second and sometimes even third stint. Aiden Watson, is that not the perfect round to draft a running back in today's draft? Maybe a couple rounds earlier. It's a tough question to answer. I think that the third or the fourth round, you have a chance of getting someone who's really good, much more so than in the sixth. But it's not a bad idea to take a flyer on a running back. every year, there's so many injuries. You want to maybe luck into somebody that's as good as Dameon Pierce was, who you found in the 4th round. Jordan, per Gus Paredes, is the gadget guy. And Calculon is saying, watch this video, it's not bad. CS292, Texans are trying to create a new position, safety linebacker hybrids all over the field. Not the only team doing that. The Patriots do a bit of that. Pierce is a run into the second level guy. Hate those guys. Well, I mean, certain offenses, that's a fit. It's just not a fit with what Bobby Slowick wants to do, Shelton is calling me the real voice of the Houston Texans. Paul, the Patriot Gallant. Yeah, I know. There's going to be that one guy who always comments like, Massachusetts boy, what the fuck you talking about my Texans? I had some person comment on yesterday's draft video, and he says like, oh, of course this guy's doing the draft show from his mother's basement. And I mean, I guess it does kind of look like my mother's basement. It is a 2-bedroom condo, 2 bathrooms too. Come on, close to the Galleria. I do own, not renting. I'm not going to act like I'm a fancy person or rich or anything like that, but the person who commented that did look like the kind of person that leaves Post-it notes on his mirrors to make him feel like he doesn't want to drive into a train on his way to his work and his unfulfilling life. Mainly because he just took a picture. It was like a selfie of him, but he's not looking at the camera. And it looks like it was a mirror selfie, but it was like really zoomed in on him. Anyway, whatever. Fuck you, dude. More comments. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Twitch.tv/Gallant Says. On Twitter @Gallant Says. On Facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. Brandon Halam says might be a toss-up who has a better secondary between the Texans and Titans now. Look, they need a second corner still. They still need a second corner. We'll get through the rest of the picks that they made in the 7th round in just a moment. But I feel like you got to call Steven Nelson and ask him if he wants to come back. I don't think you should be too proud here. He is still a free agent. Now, does Nick Caserio want to bring back the guy who called him a clown freak? I don't know. I think that Nick Caserio has pretty thick skin on that front. But, yeah, I think that they need another corner. That's the one position they didn't really address. And I know some people are going to tell me what they told me yesterday. Like someone was saying, oh, no doubt, right away, Kamari Lassiter, the corner from Georgia that they got with the 42nd pick, their first pick, he's going to be the nickel corner, slot corner right away. I mean, maybe not. Desmond King is pretty good at certain elements of that role. Like I thought when King came back to the Texans at the end of last year, I thought he played really well. So, I mean, Lassiter has to earn it. Played at Georgia. Clearly got talent if he's being taken in the 2nd round, but it does feel like there maybe were other corners that the Texans wanted to draft and teams traded in front of them to get them. We did touch on that last night. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Oh, man. A lot of guys are complimenting me. I like that. Shelton, my favorite Texans talking head. I appreciate that. Jacob says I'm at least entertaining. That's code for he doesn't know what he's fucking talking about. I'm just kidding. There's a bunch of other transplants on the radio that are just faking the funk. I mean, I've been here long enough where I don't really feel like a transplant anymore. I mean, I've been here since 2011. I did that for 2 years in Seattle. Not my fault. 610 fired me. Not my fault. I wanted to stay. I didn't want to leave. But hey, shit happens. More comments here. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Twitch.tv/Gallant Says. And Facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. And on Twitter @Gallant Says. Brandon Halam brings out there's some undrafted players out there. True. 100%. Gus Paredes is asking how many years Stover played with CJ. I think 2 technically, but he wasn't playing a lot in 2021 because he only had 7 catches. The next year, though, he did play a good deal with C.J. Stroud. So there's got to be some chemistry. That's nice. It's a nice thing to have from the college level. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work out at the pro level, though. I mean, look at Derek Carr and Devontae Adams, And, yeah, Derek Carr, not the best quarterback, but not a bad quarterback, right? We saw that did not work out so well in Vegas. Rick Haygood says, I thought tackle was going to be next year, but getting Patterson's offensive tackle chemistry, Bud might be good foresight post-tonsil. The guys who played together in college, it's cool that they played together in college. That's really it. I think when you're at the professional level, having played with somebody before can help a bit, but how much is it really going to help if you have familiarity with somebody else that's on the field with you? Some, like offensive linemen, maybe more than at other positions. It's nice to know what the guy that's near you can and can't do. But, I mean, optimally, now that these guys are all in the NFL, like you're getting way better than where you were all those years ago too, you know? You're working on the elements of your game that maybe were lacking at that level. You're bigger, you're stronger. So I understand the thought process that maybe it gives them a little extra edge, whether it's Stover with Stroud or it's Patterson and Blake Fisher. But don't overthink it too much, you know? It's fun. It's fun to talk about the draft. I'm looking at it through this lens. I hope the best for all of these guys, and I'm just going to try and tell you what I think that they'll be used as. The next pick, 238, haven't talked about him yet. Solomon Byrd, an edge rusher from USC the Texans took. Surprised that the Texans got another edge rusher. They have a lot of them right now. Obviously, Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, but you also have Mario Edwards. You brought back Derek Barnett. You got a lot of edge rushers right now. You can never have too many, but a 7th-round pick from USC, his description, an edge defender with a productive run at Wyoming and USC. He fails to stand out physically or athletically on tape, but plays with solid aggression and play strength. He just finds himself entangled with blockers more than he should. He can be creative when attacking, tackles at the top of the rush, but he struggled to get much done when tasked with taking on some of the more talented opponents on the schedule. Okay, well, that doesn't make you feel great about a guy that's about to move up to the NFL level, does it? Adequate play strength in his upper body, blah, 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 blah. You can read the rest of the Lance Zierlein draft report. I don't want to bore you with it. Solomon Byrd, we wish him well. We wish him well, you know? A lot of competition at that edge rusher spot. It's going to be, I think, hardest for him, probably of all the players that the Texans drafted to make the roster. The next pick, 247, Marcus Harris, 27th pick of the 7th round. Projected 5th-round pick. Read Lance Zierlein's draft report about this guy. I think you're going to like it. I like it. Not the biggest, 6'2", 286. Played at Kansas first, transferred to Auburn. Playmaking interior lineman who makes up for his lack of size with quickness and instincts. He punches above his weight class in the strength department. Nice. Utilizing upper body power and lower body balance to fight the good fight. Fight the good fight? Hell yeah. He'll get moved around by bigger bodies, but he's relentless and has the athleticism to find his way back into plays. He has skilled hands and the lateral quickness to dive into gaps as both a run defender and pass rusher. Harris's best chance to succeed will be as a one-gapper in an even front where he can become a very good rotational defender or eventual starter. Instinctive like that. Low center of gravity, stronger than you'd expect. This is a nice pick. In the 7th round, at a position where you definitely need more depth. I mean, it's Danico Autry, who's probably going to be playing some defensive tackle, but he's up there in age. He's 33. He's going to be playing every down? Probably not. So, along with Tim Settle, Foley Fatukasi, Kurt Heinisch, who's still there, Khalil Davis, they're going to have to make the most that they can with the defensive tackle they have. There will be post-June 1st cuts. There will be training camp cuts. Maybe somebody becomes available that they didn't expect. Maybe somebody unretires. I don't know. J.J. Watt, Aaron Donald. Just kidding. Those two probably are not unretiring. But it looks like this is a position that is going to need something else right now, to me, on paper. But for Marcus Harris, the good news is, seems like he's going to have a chance to perhaps carve some playing time early on, you know? He's just going to have a good training camp. The last pick the Texans made, a guard/tackle, LaDarius Henderson from Michigan. You like the versatility. He played at Michigan. Michigan did a really good job running the football this past season. I think that the Texans needed a little bit more help on the interior last year. So, hey, a little bit of depth, great. A little bit of versatility, awesome. You heard Nick Caserio yesterday say that the Texans want to have 3 to 4 tackles. So you should always take swings at tackles, and a guy that can play guard and tackle, you know what? You'd rather this guy do it than Titus Howard. So there you go, guys. That's about all the picks. I was trying to see if there's anything else. Right now, I'm taking a look to see if anything was said by Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans at their press conference after the draft. It might be taking place right now. I don't see anything on Twitter, so if there is anything that comes, we'll talk about it on the radio show on Monday at noon. Let's read some more comments before I hit the road. I got a dog sit for a friend. He's got 2 pit bulls. They're crazy. They're fucking crazy. But they're very sweet to me. They are crazy, though. But they're sweet to me. Crazy dogs. What else do we have here? Jacob Ayers. It's all right, Paul. 6'10" likes to fire all the good talent. They love to hire cheap hires. I don't know if they love to hire cheap hires, and I'm not going to slander anyone at 6'10". I love John Lopez. We did a TV show together for 6 years. Landry and I are friends. I did a show with Seth. I did a post-game show with Sean. I love all of those guys. I don't really know Ron. I kind of know Clint. That's just directions that they chose in afternoons. And hey, was I bitter back in the day when I thought that I might get a chance for afternoons? Yeah, but you got to move on, Got to move on with your life. What else do we have here? Jacob Ayers is out of here. Hey, Jake, have a good day, bro. Billy Gamble says, good draft, plenty of depth in the secondary and on the offensive line, especially with all the injuries we've seen the past few seasons. Yep, made sense to draft multiple offensive linemen, especially because it did feel like you were filling the void with no offense to Michael Dieter and some of the other guys that got thrown into the fire over the course of the year. But, Michael Dieter at one point was playing center, And, remember in the preseason when he got destroyed by the Patriots at right tackle and the Texans were missing all of their tackles for Stroud's first game, you got to keep drafting offensive linemen, I think, in every single draft. One offensive lineman at least, one defensive lineman at least, and if you don't have a quarterback, one quarterback at least every single year. Brandon Hallam says, if Patterson and Fisher can convince Joe Alt to come rejoin them in 4 years. God, we are really putting the tinfoil hats on. Should get my tinfoil hat out. Adrian says, I'm surprised they didn't prioritize guard, just a swing in the 7th. Well, he can play guard too, when you're drafting that late, you are taking the players that you know anything about. Because, yes, you study every single player out there, and I'm sure that there are some figures in the draft room that are looking at somebody like, I'm forgetting his name already. Sorry about that. They're looking at somebody like LaDarius Henderson and saying, yeah, this guy, he's so versatile or something like that. But for the most part, most of the scouts probably have not done that much research on a guy who is taken with the 250th pick, You're taking flyers on who you think has a chance to make it in the league. You don't just draft the guy because you needed him or because the mock drafts or other people, draft experts, projected him to go in a certain round, Roderick Taylor. Roderick Taylor, I know the energy in the stadium is going to be lit for the games this season. Yes, it fucking better be. It fucking better be. I got to say, and I get it. There are so many people who I'm sure had season tickets and were so fucking done with what the team was the last couple of years, so they sold their tickets away. But the Steelers game, more Steelers fans than Texans fans. The Broncos game, more Broncos fans than Texans fans. The playoff game against the Browns was the first game of the year where it felt like a home field advantage. And okay, it's the playoffs, so people that maybe had sold their tickets before the season began, they're not selling these ones. If you get an opportunity to get them, although you might think about selling them, you're probably going to make a shit ton. I do think it's going to be a lot louder at NRG, and I'm excited for that. The Browns game was so fucking fun. If you weren't there, I was in the press box, and I was trying my best to shut up because you're not allowed to talk or cheer when you're up there. But, I've been here long enough where I do get hot and bothered when this team plays well. And, considering where my Patriots are right now, I'm probably going to just outright jump on the bandwagon entirely at some point this year. I'm a front runner. What can I say? Brandon Hallam, anyone have bail money for the Titans' new defensive tackle, Tvondre Sweat? What, did you get arrested again? It's just a drinking and driving, which I'm not trying to diminish. Zach Bargerstock says, Paul, you're in the afternoons now, technically with the killer BGs, Galan and George. That is true. It is noon to 3. H-Town Swarm. It was an awesome draft by the Texans. What was annoying, Xavier Worthy went to the Chiefs by trading with the Bills. I could not understand. Yeah, I don't think the Bills are serious this year. They might be serious next year, but I think the Bills are looking at themselves and thinking, we got to get as many picks and as many players as we possibly can to build back up. What else do we have here? Brandon Hallam says we have 5 guys who will be healthier and more experienced at the center of the offensive line this year. Yes, I agree there. Texans in Politics says it's 6 loss. Whatever. Yeah. I don't know. I shouldn't talk about it. You know, I'm trying to move on. I'm a person that has held grudges often. And like, what's the point, you know, of holding a grudge? It's not going to get me back there. And I don't know. If I went back there, would they even pay me? Probably not. I like it at ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. They let me say whatever I want. They really do. Now, I have a co-host now in Joe George, and I think Joe is trying to steer me back on the ship more often than not. When it was just me, Jesus, what a mess it was. A liberal optimist comments, more quarterbacks being taken as undrafted free agents. Yes, sure. I like your French name. I like the little accent, Egu. I think that's what it is, right? One last comment. This is from Brandon Hallam. If the Texans can have a good enough record, the playoffs can be all indoor games, and the Super Bowl is an indoor game just down the road. I know, but I don't like the indoor games. I don't like them. You know, I like the games in the elements. On the frozen tundra, you know? Maybe that makes me an asshole or a Yankee carpetbagger, but I feel like the indoor teams sometimes get exposed in the playoffs when they got to play those northern teams outside. You got to play Kansas City in the cold. You got to play Baltimore in the cold. It is an advantage. I know, growing up a Patriots fan, my 2 favorite games that I ever went to were the 03-04 AFC Championship game and the 04-05 AFC Divisional Playoff game, where Peyton Manning and the Colts came to town, and it started snowing just as the game began. And I'm sitting in the stands, and as soon as the snow started, we knew that these soft Colts, the Patriots were just going to beat the shit out of them all game. And they might have been holding, because Bill Polian whined afterwards and got the 5-yard contact rule enforced again because his little receivers couldn't get off jams. And then the next year, they lost 20-3, and they couldn't get off the jams by like a wide receiver turned cornerback because there were so many injuries at corner, and they scored less points in that game. Oh, no. Oh, no, we're the Colts. We underachieved with Peyton Manning as our quarterback. Oh, you hate to see it. Rick Hagewood says we prefer AC indoors. I do like AC indoors. I do like it. But I don't know. There's something about watching a football game in the snow or in cold weather. They need to open the roof first. That. They don't open the roofs anywhere here. Speaking of the open roofs, I believe that the Houston Astros are playing right now against the Colorado Rockies in Mexico. I have no idea what the score of this game is. Holy shit, they're winning. They're winning 6-2. And the Celtics are winning. Oh, it's a good day for Houston sports. Huzzah! Anyway, on that note, I'm going to wrap things up. Got to go run over and take care of a couple doggos. Anyway, appreciate you guys tuning in. If you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel at Paul Gallant, or my Twitch channel at Gallant Says. Hell, like the video on either of those platforms. Every little like, it helps. It helps me feed my cat. If you're a Facebook person, it's on Facebook. If you're on Twitter, it's on Twitter. At Gallant Says, facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. I believe it is broadcasting to my Instagram right now, at Sports Gallant. I have no idea if anyone's watching. Optimally, I'd like to move it over to my TikTok, but you have to have like 10,000 followers to actually post it to TikTok. And also, TikTok's apparently going to die. At least that's what the government's saying. Whatever. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We're not going to put this one up in podcast form. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to put this show up in podcast form because we use video a lot, and my ramblings sometimes go so all over the place that I'm embarrassed to post it. I'm only half kidding on that front. But Thank you so much for stopping by on a Saturday afternoon. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. We'll be back at it, me and Joe George, Monday at noon, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5, and on the ESPN Houston YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed and liked to that one already, what the fuck are you doing? Please do it. Do it. We post stuff on that too. So long, farewell, and you'll hear from me in a couple of days. Peace.